We're going to go ahead and we're going to continue to work with the animate method, but I want to introduce you to some of the really cool plugins that are available for jQuery that you can use in conjunction with Animate. And this will allow us to be able to create a more compelling type of ease or acceleration in our animation. Before we actually do that though, we're going to have to modify the page just a little bit. This is the page we're going to be working with. We're back to our kind of regular default page. I've eliminated the jQuery that actually makes the buttons function, but you could leave that and just keep working on the file that you've already developed. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop an image into the page right here, and we're going to animate the image, and then we'll go ahead and play with some different ways that we can adjust or control the animation. So back here in my HTML, I'm going to begin by just creating a new div that will hold the animation, and I'm just going to put this div right after the container div, right before the nav div. We're going to be positioning this ultimately absolutely so it doesn't really matter where it is essentially on the page. It just needs to be inside of that container div. So I'm going to go ahead and specify the code for a div, and I'll assign a class, and the class that we're going to be calling this is going to be fruit fall, because it's some fruit that we're going to make fall on the page. And then I'll go ahead and I'll specify the image, and the source is going to be equal to, and from where I'm working I have to go up one directory and then find the images directory, and the image that I'm going to be using is called fruitfall.ping. And it's probably a good idea just to give it a little bit of a width and height definition. So the width of my image is 256 for the pixels, and the height of the image is going to be equal to 260. And I'll just go ahead and close my image tag, and then we'll close the div. So that's what we've added in right here. And I just want to go ahead and remind you, if we look in our CSS, the container div, I've gone ahead and I've added a position of relative so that I'll be able to absolutely position the fruit image. So if we save the page right now and we preview it in our browser, it's going to look like this. So obviously it's pushing everything else down, and that's because currently I haven't assigned any sort of position to this image. So I'm going to want to do that so that I can ensure that the rest of the image doesn't get all thrown off. And we're going to be doing this with our CSS and with the jQuery. So let's go ahead and modify the CSS to start with. We'll go into our CSS file, and I'm just going to go ahead and make a new rule here, and we'll go ahead and we'll target container and then the fruit fall div that we just created. And what I'm going to want to define is the position, and we're going to go ahead and use the position of absolute. And then for the left, I'm going to go ahead and define a position of 0. And then for the top, I'm going to define a position of 240 pixels. So now if we save our page and refresh in the browser, you'll see that I did not target the class of the fruitfall div correctly. So let's go ahead and let's just change that, and we'll go back into the browser. And if we refresh the browser now, you can see that the fruit is located where we want it, kind of sitting at the bottom of this left-hand panel right here. Alright, so now we have this set up. We're going to go into jQuery and we're going to animate this fruit falling into the page. So we'll go ahead and we'll set up some basic animation first. I'm going to go ahead and define a rule for the container fruit fall element. And we're going to go ahead and style this with CSS, so we'll use the .css method, and then I'm going to specify how it is that I want to adjust the image here, and let's adjust it by setting the top to have a value, a negative value, so that it actually is pulled off of the page. So I'm going to use a negative value of 300 pixels. Let's go ahead and try that. And if we save this and go back into our browser, when we refresh the browser, the image now disappears. So the image is actually up here off of the page where we can't see it, so it's actually out of view. And what we ultimately want to do is we want to animate this coming down. We're going to go ahead and chain on another set of instructions. So we're already telling the fruitfall div to have a new top position. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add on the animate method, and with the animate method we'll go ahead and we'll assign a new top value, and the new top value is actually going to be the top value that we used in our initial CSS. We've already tested it and we know where it needs to be. It needs to be at 240 pixels. And let me close my curly brace here, and then I'm just going to add a comma and I'll pass on the amount of time that we want to delay this, and we'll just use 500 here. And I am missing a closing parenthesis right here. I need to make sure these are all paired up. So that looks good. Let's save that. Let's refresh it in the browser. When I come back to the browser, you can see that now the fruit, that happens pretty fast, but now the fruit falls in as soon as the page is loaded. So I refresh and the fruit comes falling in. So this is using the default easing method, which is just a swing ease, where if you watch closely you can see that the image kind of slows down where it gets to its ending position, and since it's coming off the page it's actually a little hard to see, but the swing easing is a more natural easing than a linear easing. You could also specify linear. So if we come back into our CSS here and I want to change this, I can go ahead and after the speed, if I put a comma and I type linear, it'll use the other option that we have available for the easing. So if I refresh the page, you can see now that the fruit is going to fall at a constant rate of speed, where the swing has kind of a more natural easing where it's going to accel and deaccelerate as it gets to its resting point. It's almost like your car in the driveway. You're going to start off slowly and ramp up, and then if you're going to come to your ending spot, you're going to be going fast, and then of course you'll slow down as you get to the parking space where you're actually parking. So these are the default ease methods that you have available, linear or swing, and you don't actually have to type swing because swing is the default behavior for the ease. This makes the animation a little bit more interesting, adding the easing on, of course. But in addition to these two easing types that we have available, you actually have some plugins that you can download, and then you can expand the easing that is just available for you by default. So let me show you how you can actually download the easing plugins. Here I am on the jQuery web page, and the address is simply jQuery.com, and I'm going to come to the navigation and click plugins right here, and this lists all types of different plugins that you can use, and there's just like endless plethora of JavaScript that people have written that you can use in your projects, and there's some really amazing things. We'll be working a lot with the plugins as we go through this course, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to search for easing plugin, and I'm just going to type that in here, and looks like it didn't find it. Let's just search for easing down here. Somehow I found that the search up here doesn't really work, but then once you specify your search in this secondary window, it does work. I don't know what it is. And the one that we want is actually down here near the bottom of the page. It's called easing plugin. I'm going to click that, and when you get to these plugin pages, they're not super intuitive in my opinion, because it doesn't actually allow you to download the plugin from here. It just kind of gives you a little bit of information. But if you click this link right here, view all releases, it'll take you to a page where you can actually download the plugin. So these are different versions of the plugin, so you can see when the plugin was originally written, and there'll be some notations as to anything that was updated or fixed. I'm just going to get the newest one, so I'm going to click download right here, and what it's going to do is it's going to download the text file onto my machine. You can also just click the link for the txt file, which is actually just a JavaScript file, and this is what the JavaScript is all about. So all of these names right here are different easing effects that you can pass on into your project. So there's a ton in here and they all do some really cool things. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to check some of these out. This is a great reference if you want to, obviously you're not going to be sure of what the names are. So if you just look in the JavaScript file, what I'm going to encourage you to do is once you understand how to use it is just go in and try the various names. So we'll go ahead and leave this page open so that we can reference this as we proceed through this exercise. I'm just going to minimize that page right now and we'll go back into our JavaScript file. So let's augment this a little bit. The first thing that I'm going to need to do in order to utilize this is I'm going to need to point to this JavaScript file that contains all the information about the easing. So what you need to do is you need to save that JavaScript file into your scripts folder, and I've already downloaded that and saved it into my scripts folder. So all I need to do now is I just need to write the link to this particular file. So I'm just going to actually just copy paste one of these lines right here, which is pointing to one of the other script files that we're using in our project, and I'm just going to change the name of the file right here. It's located in my scripts directory, and if you're using my exercise files, you'll find the jQuery easing file in there. So the name of the file is jQuery.easing .1.2.js. Oops, I already have the JS. So that's going to point to the file that we need to use for this particular exercise. And if I save my page now and we go back into the browser, nothing has changed so far because all I've done is pointed to that. If I want to go ahead and use some of those new animation algorithms that are available to me, I'm going to need to change my jQuery script file a little bit here. So let's go back into our script file, and I'm going to change this from swing to one of the other available types of ease. So let's go ahead and let's just try the ease out elastic. So I'm going to go ahead and type that, and these are case sensitive. They need to be typed exactly like you see them in the JavaScript file. If we come back in here and we refresh, you'll see that the behavior of this is much different. It's very fast and it kind of has a quick bounce, like it's very heavy, it's just falling straight down and it's very weighted, but it's changed the animation substantially. It actually makes the whole page almost looks like it's like bouncing like this, all of a sudden looks like it weighs a ton. So that of course is one of the available animation algorithms that we can use. And before we try some more, let me just show you one other thing. The man who actually wrote the algorithms, his name is Robert Penner, and he is actually a Flash kind of guru from way back in the day, and these are actually all ease functions that were used in Flash. So this is his website right here, robertpenner.com, and I've just gone ahead and gone to easing. Okay, so if you type in robertpenner.com/easing, you can go ahead and you can go into and his website is really hard to see with this blue text, but anyways, you can go into this equation visualizer and it basically takes you to this page right here, and this has all of the eases. So if you click these, it's going to show you a graph of the algorithm of this particular ease, so you can kind of get a better idea of how the ease is going to work. If the graph is completely linear, just going from one corner up, like from here down here up to the right straight, your ease is going to be a constant rate of speed. When you start to get the bends right here is when it starts to slow down, ease in and ease out. And some of these eases are more like, here's a bounce ease, so this is going to actually have your element, whatever it is, like kind of bounce down. So this is the ease in bounce, and if we go ahead and try that on our page, let's change this here, and go back into our page, it's actually going to, the element is going to kind of bounce in. So you can see it kind of goes, bounces up there. Let's actually change this to bounce out, because since the element is off the page, it's really hard to see it actually bouncing in. So I'll just change that to ease out, bounce. And if I refresh the screen now, you can see that it kind of comes bouncing in and then thumps and lands on the page. So there's all sorts of fun things that you can do in here. I would definitely encourage you just to look through the JavaScript easing function, and you're just going to have to really experiment and try the different eases out. There's a ton in here, and they'll really augment and make your animation just that much more compelling. I mean, it's really easy to be able to incorporate these into your project. Just remember that you need to download the JavaScript file so that you can have access to the various ease functions that are available to you.